So you want to own an airline. You picture the logo on the tail, the routes fanning out across a map, planes full of people who each paid for a seat. Here's the part that should stop you cold. A jet can take off with more than 4 out of 5 seats filled and still lose money on the trip. In 2024, US passenger airlines filled a record share of their seats, around 84% of them, on domestic flights. And the whole industry walked away with about $6-7 billion in net profit on $247 billion in revenue. That is a margin of roughly 2.5 cents on the dollar, and it was down from the year before. Full planes, razor-thin returns. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you how you actually buy one of these things, what it costs just to keep a single jet in the air, where the money really comes from, what quietly destroys the people who own airlines, and why the strongest owner in this business might not want to own the airplanes at all. Start with permission, because you cannot simply buy jets and start selling tickets. To fly paying passengers on a schedule in the United States, you need 2 very different blessings from 2 very different agencies. The first is a safety certificate from the Federal Aviation Administration, an air carrier certificate under what is called Part 12-100-100. Getting it is not a form you mail in. The FAA runs applicants through a structured gauntlet of 5 phases and 3 formal gates, where you have to design your safety processes, document your entire operation, and then prove on paper and in practice that you can fly the way you claim. There is no shortcut and there is no fixed timeline. It takes as long as it takes to satisfy them. The second blessing is economic authority from the Department of Transportation. The DOT has to find that you are, in the language of federal law, fit, willing, and able to provide the service, and that you are a U.S. citizen as the statute defines it. Fitness includes showing you have the financial resources to pull this off without stranding passengers halfway through your first winter. Here's what surprises people. There is no single published number, no magic minimum bank balance the government prints on a website. The DOT judges your money case by case. You apply for that economic authority early, during the FAA's pre-application stage. And somewhere in that same pile of paperwork you have to show contracts and leases for your aircraft, proof that you actually have planes, or at least a real letter of intent to get them. So before a single passenger buys a ticket, you have already committed to airplanes and convinced 2 agencies you belong in the sky. Now, those airplanes. Let's talk about the sticker price and then about what anyone actually pays, because they are not the same number. The last time Airbus published a list price, back in 2018, a single A320neo carried a catalog price around $110 million, and the stretched A321neo about $129 million. That is the sticker on the window, and nobody serious pays it. Airbus and Boeing stopped publishing those list prices after 2018, partly because they had become a bit of a fiction. Big buyers routinely negotiate discounts of 30, 40, 50% or more, and the real market value of a new narrow-body jet lands closer to $50 or $60 million. But here is the move that reveals how this industry actually thinks. A lot of owners do not buy the plane at all. They lease it. Instead of sinking $55 million into an aircraft, you rent it for something like $350,000 to $400,000 a month on a contract that might run 12 years. You get the jet, you get the roads, and the metal stays on someone else's balance sheet. Hold that thought, because it comes back at the end. Either way, the airplane is only the first check you write. A new airline also needs deposits before deliveries, a stock of expensive spare parts, training for pilots and mechanics, and a cushion of working capital to cover months of payroll and fuel before revenue catches up. Nobody publishes a tidy figure for all of that, because it depends on your fleet and your ambitions. Just understand that the plane on the runway is the beginning of the spending, not the end of it. Say you have your certificate and your fleet. Every minute those engines are running, the jet is burning your money, and we can be precise about how much. In 2024, operating a US passenger aircraft cost about $100.76 per block minute. Block time is the clock that starts when the plane pushes back from the gate and stops when it parks at the other end. Taxiing included, $100 a minute. On a 2.5-hour flight, that is roughly $15,000 gone before you count a single thing on the ground. Where does that $100 a minute go? The biggest slice is people, the pilots and flight attendants, at about $35 a minute. Fuel is right behind it at around $33. then maintenance at about 18, the cost of owning or leasing the aircraft itself at about 10, and everything else at roughly 4. Zoom out to the whole industry, and the same order holds. Across 2024, labor was the number one expense at about $85 billion, and fuel was number two at nearly $44 billion. And fuel is the number that keeps owners awake, because you do not control it. In April of 2025, jet fuel cost airlines about $2.31 a gallon. 1 year later, in April 2026, it was $4.11, a 78% jump in 12 months. Imagine any other business where your second largest cost can nearly double while your prices are already printed and sold. One more thing about that per minute figure. It is only the direct cost of flying the plane, the crew, fuel, maintenance, and ownership. It does not include the fees you pay every airport to land and park at a gate, the crews on the ground who handle bags, the cost of selling the ticket, or the corporate overhead keeping the company running. Those are all extra. This is why the machine has to keep moving. A parked plane still costs you the lease, the insurance, and the crew. It just stops earning. The whole model runs on utilization, flying the jet as many hours a day as you safely can, because idle aluminum is the most expensive aluminum you own. So how does one flight pay for itself? The number every airline lives and dies by is the load factor. The share of available seats you actually sell. Fill more than 4 out of 5 and you are doing well by industry standards. But a full-sounding load factor does not automatically mean profit, because what matters is where your break-even sits, the exact percentage of seats you have to sell just to cover the cost of that flight. Below the line, the flight loses money. Above it, you finally keep some. That break-even is not a fixed national figure. It moves with your costs, your fares, and how far you are flying, which is exactly why two airlines on the same route can meet very different fates. Then there is the revenue that is not the ticket. When you check a bag and get charged for it, that fee is not a rounding error. Across U.S. airlines, checked bag fees alone added up to about $73 billion in 2024, and reservation change fees another billion on top. Seat selection, priority boarding, the sandwich you buy at 30,000 feet, all of it stacks onto the fare, and in the belly of the plane, beneath your feet, there's often cargo riding along on the same flight you were already going to operate, turning empty space into extra money. But do not get carried away and start picturing an airline as a fee company that happens to fly. Even with all those extras, the plane passenger fares still made up about 75% of industry revenue in 2024. The ticket is still the business. The fees are the margin you scrape on top of an operation that on the ticket alone barely clears its costs. Picture the flight as a small moving store with a hard deadline. The moment those doors close, every unsold seat is worthless forever, and every extra you sold on the way, the bag, the legroom, the cargo and the hold, is the difference between a flight that made money and one that merely flew. Which brings us to how airlines squeeze the most out of that perishable inventory. Everyone on your flight paid a different price, and that is not an accident. Airlines slice each cabin into fare buckets, a ladder of prices for the same seat, and a computer constantly decides how many seats to sell at each rung based on how full the flight is and how soon it leaves. Book early and flexible, you pay less. Book last minute for a Monday morning, you pay for the privilege. They will even sell more seats than the plane has because they know some people never show up. That is overbooking, and it is completely legal and tightly regulated. If they bump you against your will and get you there only a little late, federal rules cap what they owe you at $1,075. Strand you longer with no good alternative, and that cap rises to $2,150. Volunteer to give up your seat for a voucher, though, and that is just a negotiation. Where you fly matters as much as how you price it. At the busiest airports, you cannot simply show up and take off, because the number of takeoffs and landings each hour is rationed by the government into things called slots. At Reagan National, for instance, airlines are allotted just 37 operations an hour, and at LaGuardia, 48. A slot is not a route, and it is not a fare. It is federal permission to use the runway in a specific window, and at a handful of airports, there are only so many to go around. That scarcity is why hubs and route networks are so valuable. Control the right times at the right airports, and you control access itself. Now, for the part of the business that barely looks like flying at all. Somewhere along the way, airlines discovered that the miles in your account might be worth more than the planes in their hangars. Here's how strange it gets. In 2020, when the pandemic grounded the world and airlines were desperate for cash, United did not borrow against its jets. It borrowed against its frequent flyer program, Mileage Plus, raising $6 billion with the loyalty program itself as collateral. Lenders handed over that much because a program that mints miles and sells them is a remarkably steady, high-margin machine. United's own appraisers valued Mileage Plus at around $22 billion, a figure to treat as an appraisal rather than cash in the bank, but a staggering number for a points program. Where does that value come from? Mostly from a bank. Airlines sell miles in bulk to credit card companies, who then hand them out to you every time you swipe. Look at Delta. In 2024, its co-branded deal with American Express brought in $74 billion, and Delta expects that to climb toward $10 billion over time. To put it in perspective, Delta's entire pre-tax income for that year was about $5 billion. The check from the credit card partner was larger than the profit from actually flying people around. Now be careful how you say that, because it is easy to overstate. A loyalty program is not a literal bank. It does not take deposits, it is not chartered or regulated like one. And that American Express money is payment for selling miles, not profit and not your savings. But it is a high-margin currency and marketing business bolted onto an airline, and for the biggest carriers it can be the steadiest money in the whole operation. So what actually destroys the people who own airlines? Start with the thing we already saw. Fuel that can leap 78% in a year while your tickets are already sold. Add debt, because airplanes are bought with borrowed money, and those payments come due whether or not anyone is flying. Add labor, your single biggest cost, negotiated with unions who know exactly how much a grounded fleet hurts you. Then layer on the things no owner controls at all, a snowstorm that shuts a hub for 2 days, a recession that empties the business cabin, a virus that erases demand overnight. An airline carries enormous fixed costs and thin profits, which leaves very little cushion to absorb any of it. You can see the result in the wreckage. Since the industry was deregulated in 1978, there have been more than 160 airline bankruptcy filings in the United States. Most were not the airline vanishing. They were Chapter 11 restructurings, where the carrier keeps flying while it sheds debt. But the sheer number tells you how fragile this business is, and there is a quieter fact underneath all of it. Even in the good stretch from 2012 to 2019, when airlines were consistently turning operating profits, they collectively fell about 4% short of their cost of capital, destroying an average of nearly $18 billion of economic value every year. Read that carefully. It does not mean airlines never make money, because they do. It means that as a group, they have chronically failed to earn enough to justify the enormous capital tied up in them. They are the most exposed link in the chain, and the one with the least room to spare. Let me make this concrete with 2 illustrative years for the same imaginary airline, and I do mean illustrative, teaching numbers rather than a forecast of any real carrier. Picture a tidy fleet of 20 narrow-body jets, 180 seats each, flying 6 trips a day, every day of the year. That works out to about 43,800 flights and just under 8 million seats to sell annually. In a favorable year, you fill 85% of those seats at an average fare of $180, and you pull in another $40 per passenger from bags, cargo, and loyalty. Run it through the cost machine, crew, fuel, maintenance, and ownership at those 2024 rates, plus about $60 a passenger in ground, and selling costs and $250 million in fixed overhead, and you land on total revenue near $147 billion against about $131 billion in costs. Your operating result is a profit of roughly $160 million, an operating margin close to 11%, a genuinely good year. Now keep the exact same fleet and hit it with a rough one. Demand softens, so you fill only 76% of seats, and fares slip to $172. Fuel spikes, say your per-minute fuel cost jumps about 50%, crews run overtime through the delays, and you spend more per passenger caring for stranded travelers. Same 20 planes, same structure, only the shocks are different. The result flips to a loss of about $196 million, a negative margin of roughly 15%. That is a $356 million swing on an identical fleet in a single year, the brutal operating leverage of this business. And here is the subtle, important part. That losing year still filled 76% of its seats. The loss was not caused by empty planes. In the good year, you only needed to fill about 72% to break even, so 76 should have been fine. What sank the bad year was the cost side, the fuel shock and the softer fares that pushed the break even up past 90%, so even a respectable 76% could no longer cover the bill. Blame the shocks, not the seats. So circle back to where we started. You wanted to own an airline. After all this, what does the strongest owner in the business actually own? Notice what kept showing up. The planes can be leased. In our own example, the ownership cost was identical in the good year and the bad, because it is just a fixed rent of a few $100,000 a month per jet, and the metal is a commodity you can rent from almost anyone. The things that were rare, durable, and hard to copy were something else entirely. The slots at airports where the government hands out only a few dozen an hour, the loyalty program you can borrow billions against, the credit card partnership that can out-earn the flying, and the direct relationship with millions of travelers who open your app first. That is the real answer. The winner in this business does not so much own airplanes as own access, a currency, and a customer, and the jets merely carry passengers from one to the other. Buy the airline if you like the logo on the tail. Just remember that the aluminum on the runway is the least valuable thing you will put your name on.